First story, Whispering Shadows by Sarah Mitchell. It was a cold winter evening in the quiet town of Ashford, nestled deep in the heart of Vermont. I had just moved into a cozy little house on the outskirts, seeking solace from the hustle and bustle of city life. Little did I know that the tranquility I sought would soon be shattered by the haunting presence of a mysterious stalker. The first signs were subtle, almost imperceptible. A glimpse of a shadow out of the corner of my eye, a rustle in the bushes as I returned home from work. I tried to dismiss these occurrences as mere figments of my imagination, attributing them to the overactive paranoia that often accompanies the unfamiliarity of a new place. But deep down, a seed of unease had been planted. As days turned into weeks, the encounters grew more brazen. The mysterious figure, always obscured by darkness, seemed to follow me wherever I went. Late at night, as I lie in bed, I could hear faint whispers echoing through the frosty air. The words were unintelligible, but the tone was menacing, sending shivers down my spine. One evening, after a particularly grueling shift at the local bookstore, I decided to take a shortcut through the dimly lit alley behind my house. The streetlights flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows that danced along the narrow path. A sudden cold breeze sent a chill through my bones, and I quickened my pace. That is when I felt it, the unmistakable sensation of being watched. I dared not look back, fearing what I might find. My heart raced, and beads of sweat formed on my forehead. The footsteps behind me quickened, matching my every move. Panic set in as I fumbled for my keys, desperate to reach the safety of my home. With a trembling hand, I finally unlocked the door and stumbled inside, slamming it shut behind me. Gasping for breath, I peered through the curtains, expecting to catch a glimpse of my relentless pursuer. Yet the darkness outside revealed nothing but an empty street shrouded in an unsettling silence. As days turned into nights, the torment persisted. Strange occurrences within my home intensified. Objects moved without explanation. Eerie noises echoed through the hallways. I began to question my sanity, wondering if the relentless stalking was a product of my own unraveling mind. One fateful night, as I lie awake in bed, I heard a chilling sound, the creaking of my front door. Panic seized me as I tiptoed to the entrance, heart pounding in my chest. The door swung open slowly, revealing the abyss of the night outside. Fear gripped me, and I hesitated before summoning the courage to step into the void. The moon cast an eerie glow on the figure standing in my doorway, a silhouette cloaked in darkness. As the intruder turned to face me, I caught a glimpse of hollow eyes, devoid of any humanity. And in that moment, I knew I was face to face with the embodiment of my deepest fears. With a guttural whisper, the stalker uttered words that chilled my soul.
"You cannot escape the shadows, Sarah."
And then, as swiftly as they had appeared, they vanished into the night, leaving me alone with the haunting echoes of their malevolent laughter. Terrified and traumatized, I made the decision to leave Ashford, abandoning the quaint house that had become a prison of fear. The whispers and shadows continued to haunt my dreams, a constant reminder that some terrors are not easily left behind. The quaint town of Ashford held secrets that I could not unravel, and the scars of that harrowing experience would forever linger in the recesses of my mind. Second story, Midnight Pursuit by Alex Thompson. It was the heart of summer, and I had just finished another exhausting night shift at the steel mill in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The air hung heavy with humidity as I trudged wearily through the deserted streets toward my apartment. The dim glow of streetlights offered little comfort in the vast darkness that enveloped the city at this late hour. As I walked, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It started as an unsettling tingling at the nape of my neck, but soon escalated into a palpable sense of dread. Glancing over my shoulder, I saw nothing but the empty, dimly lit streets. Yet the gnawing feeling persisted, clawing at the edges of my consciousness. The route home took me through a desolate alley, its walls adorned with graffiti that seemed to come alive in the flickering glow of the few functioning streetlights. The oppressive stillness was suddenly shattered by the echo of footsteps, steady, deliberate, and undeniably following my every move. My heart raced as I quickened my pace, the metallic clink of my work boots resonating in the eerie silence. The footsteps behind me matched the rhythm, growing louder with each hurried step. Panic set in, and I broke into a run, the echo of my breath mixing with the ominous sounds of pursuit. Turning a corner, I stumbled upon an abandoned warehouse, its rusted doors ajar. Desperation led me inside, where the darkness swallowed me whole. The footsteps ceased momentarily, allowing a fleeting reprieve, but the oppressive atmosphere lingered like a thick fog. In the blackened depths of the warehouse, I felt the weight of unseen eyes upon me. The air was thick with tension as I strained to discern any sign of the stalker. Suddenly, a guttural whisper cut through the darkness, sending a shiver down my spine.
Alex, you can't escape. I see you.
The words hung in the air, a chilling declaration that froze the marrow in my bones. I stumbled backward, colliding with crates and discarded debris. The oppressive silence returned, broken only by the distant hum of the city outside. It was then that I realized the true horror. The stalker was playing a macabre game, toying with me in the depths of the abandoned warehouse. With trepidation, I retraced my steps, navigating the labyrinthine interior. Shadows danced on the walls, taunting me with their elusive movements. As I reached the exit, a blinding light pierced the darkness, revealing the silhouette of a figure standing at the entrance, their face obscured by the shadows. In that fleeting moment, the stalker lunged forward, and I felt a cold breath on the back of my neck. Panic consumed me as I burst out of the warehouse, sprinting towards the safety of the city lights. The footsteps resumed, echoing through the desolate streets as the stalker continued their relentless pursuit. The cityscape became my refuge, the illuminated streets my sanctuary. Gasping for breath, I finally reached the safety of my apartment. Locked behind the door, I trembled, haunted by the chilling encounter in the abandoned warehouse. The stalker's presence lingered like a ghost, a reminder that the darkness held secrets that could not be easily escaped. Third story, Shadows Within, by Marco Rodriguez. The quiet suburbs of Los Angeles were my haven, or so I believed, until the tendrils of fear snaked their way into my life. It all started innocently enough, strange occurrences that could easily be dismissed as the quirks of a new neighborhood. Little did I know, that these seemingly harmless oddities were mere preludes to a nightmare that would unfold within the confines of my own home. As I settled into my quaint house on Elmwood Avenue, nestled amidst rows of neatly manicured lawns and charming facades, I couldn't shake the feeling of being constantly observed. The windows seemed to hold eyes that followed my every move, and the whispers of the wind outside carried an otherworldly murmur that sent shivers down my spine. One particular evening, as I prepared dinner in the solitude of my kitchen, I caught a glimpse of a shadow, a silhouette that didn't belong to any object or person within the room. It darted across the periphery of my vision, disappearing before I could focus on its form. My rational mind dismissed it as a trick of the light, but the unease lingered. As the days passed, the peculiarities escalated. Objects would shift places when I wasn't looking. Doors creaked open in the dead of night, and strange marks appeared on the walls, symbols that seemed to writhe and twist in an unnatural dance. The once comforting atmosphere of my home warped into an unsettling labyrinth of uncertainty. One fateful night, the whispers that had haunted my every step grew louder, coalescing into an unintelligible chorus that reverberated through the halls. Sleep became an elusive commodity as the shadows within my home seemed to come alive, dancing in sinister patterns that defied explanation. The breaking point came when I awoke to the feeling of icy fingers grazing my skin. Startled, I sat up in bed, heart pounding in my chest. The room was bathed in an ethereal glow, and the shadows coalesced into a grotesque figure at the foot of my bed. Panic seized me as I recoiled from the phantom presence, but the entity remained silent, its hollow eyes fixated on mine. With a sudden jolt, the room plunged into darkness, and the figure vanished. I stumbled out of bed, frantically searching for answers in the inky blackness that enveloped my home. The air grew thick with a malevolent energy, and I could sense the unseen presence closing in on me. Desperation led me to the basement, a foreboding space that seemed to pulse with an ancient force. As I descended the creaking stairs, the oppressive atmosphere intensified. In the dim light, I discovered an old journal tucked away in the corner, its pages filled with cryptic symbols and arcane rituals. A sense of dread washed over me as I realized the truth. My home was a vessel for something beyond comprehension. The shadows were not mere figments of my imagination, but manifestations of an ancient malevolence that had claimed my residence as its own. In a desperate bid to sever the unholy connection, I followed the instructions in the journal. Performing a ritual meant to banish the shadows that clung to my home. As the last incantation left my lips, a deafening silence fell over the house, and the oppressive presence dissipated. Yet the scars of that night lingered. The once charming house on Elmwood Avenue became a haunting reminder of the thin veil between the mundane and the spiritual. Los Angeles, with its sprawling suburbs, held secrets that whispered through the night, leaving those who dared to listen forever changed. Fourth story, The Silent Hunt by Emily Johnson. Amidst the picturesque landscapes of upstate New York and the small town of Fairview, a seemingly idyllic existence shattered into a nightmare that unfolded with the subtlety of a gathering storm. The tranquil surroundings and close-knit community offered a false sense of security, concealing the horror that lurked just beyond the edges of familiarity. It all began when I started noticing a peculiar figure during my evening walks along the serene forest trails. At first, it was a fleeting glimpse, a silhouette that melded seamlessly with the shadows between the trees. I dismissed it as my imagination playing tricks, the rustle of leaves and the crackling of branches merely products of an active woodland. As the days passed, however, the figure grew bolder, emerging from the obscurity of the trees with deliberate intent. It seemed to match my pace, always maintaining a distance that allowed me to glimpse its features, yet not enough to discern its true identity. The unsettling realization that I was being silently hunted settled like a stone in the pit of my stomach. One chilly autumn evening, after the sun had dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the landscape, the stalker's presence became palpable. The air was thick with an unspoken tension as I navigated the familiar trail, leaves crunching beneath my boots. The echo of footsteps accompanied mine, and a cold sweat broke out on my forehead. Determined to confront my pursuer, I halted abruptly, the rustling of leaves ceasing with an unnatural abruptness. The forest fell into an eerie silence, broken only by the distant hoot of an owl. As I scanned the shadows, the figure materialized, a phantom clad in tattered clothing, face obscured by matted hair. Fear clutched at my throat as the stalker tilted its head, studying me with an intensity that transcended the boundaries of human curiosity. In that haunting silence, the figure raised a finger to its lips, signaling a chilling vow of silence. The message was clear. This was a silent hunt, and I was both the prey and the spectator in a macabre game of survival. With a disconcerting nod, the stalker melted back into the darkness, leaving me frozen in place. The forest, once a sanctuary of tranquility, had become a labyrinth of uncertainty, and every rustle of leaves threatened to expose the unseen predator lurking in the shadows. As days turned into nights, the silent hunt continued. The stalker's presence became an inescapable specter, following me beyond the forest trails and into the heart of Fairview. The once familiar streets now felt like a sinister maze, every corner concealing the elusive figure that haunted my every step. Desperation led me to confide in friends and family, but their disbelief only deepened the isolation. The stalker, it seemed, was a phantom visible only to me, an unseen force that reveled in the psychological torment it wrought. One fateful night, as I sought refuge in the dim glow of my bedroom, the silence shattered. A soft whisper, barely audible, emanated from the darkest corner.
"The hunt is over,"
it murmured, sending a chill down my spine. I turned to confront the unseen speaker, only to find the room enveloped in an impenetrable darkness. The following morning, I awoke to the sound of birdsong outside my window. The oppressive tension that had gripped Fairview had lifted, and the stalker had vanished like a phantom in the light of day. The once tranquil town, scarred by the silent hunt, resumed its normalcy, leaving me to grapple with the haunting memories of a predator that existed beyond the boundaries of reason. Fifth story, Cabin of Whispers by Thomas Anderson. Nestled deep within the dense pine forests of Oregon, my friends and I sought refuge in a remote cabin, a rustic haven far removed from the stresses of our everyday lives. Little did we know that our quest for solace would morph into a nightmarish ordeal as the whispering shadows of the woods concealed a menace that hungered for the warmth within. The journey to our secluded sanctuary was an adventure in itself, winding through narrow dirt roads that seemed to stretch into eternity. The towering trees formed an impenetrable canopy overhead, casting a twilight glow upon the path. It was in this isolation that the seeds of unease were sown, an ominous undercurrent that tugged at the edges of our consciousness. The cabin, a weathered structure with a history etched into its wooden walls, stood as a solitary sentinel against the backdrop of the ancient forest. As night descended, we gathered around the crackling fireplace, basking in the warmth that defied the chilling embrace of the surrounding wilderness. The first signs of the impending horror manifested as subtle whispers, indistinct murmurs that danced on the edge of our awareness. At first, we dismissed them as the natural cadence of the forest, a symphony of wind and leaves. But as the night wore on, the whispers grew in intensity, coalescing into an ethereal chorus that seemed to resonate from within the very walls of the cabin. Unease settled over the group, each of us casting furtive glances at the shadowy corners of the room. It was during a lull in conversation that the whispers took a sinister turn, forming words that echoed through the cabin like a spectral incantation.
Let us in.
They beckoned, their ethereal voices intertwining with the crackling of the fire. As the whispers persisted, we huddled closer, seeking solace in each other's presence. It was then that the atmosphere shifted, the air thickening with a malevolent energy. Shadows, once mere projections of the flickering flames, detached themselves from the walls, assuming a life of their own. In the dim light, we glimpsed the outlines of figures that moved with an unnatural fluidity. Panic seized us as the shadows converged, their wispy forms materializing into humanoid shapes that hovered at the periphery of our perception. The cabin, once a haven, had become a battleground between the tangible and the supernatural. Desperation led us to barricade the doors and windows, but the shadows persisted in their silent assault. The whispers morphed into guttural moans, an otherworldly lament that reverberated through the very core of our beings. We were trapped within the confines of the cabin, ensnared by an ancient force that sought to consume the warmth of our existence. As the night wore on, our group succumbed to exhaustion and fear. The cabin, once a sanctuary, became a prison of shadows and whispers. With each passing moment, the boundary between reality and the supernatural blurred, leaving us teetering on the precipice of madness. In a final act of desperation, we invoked a protective ritual, a desperate plea to the forces beyond the veil to release us from the clutches of the malevolent shadows. The air crackled with an otherworldly energy as we chanted in unison, the cabin trembling with the echoes of our collective plea. In a sudden gust of wind, the shadows recoiled, retreating into the depths of the forest. The whispers faded, replaced by the rustling of leaves and the distant calls of nocturnal creatures. The cabin, once suffocated by a supernatural presence, was restored to a serene stillness. As dawn broke over the pine-laden horizon, we emerged from the cabin, shaken and scarred by the harrowing ordeal. The whispers of the forest had claimed their momentary victory, but we carried the weight of that night, forever haunted by the shadows that sought to breach the sanctuary we had sought in the heart of the ancient woods. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed these spine-chilling tales, don't miss the video on your screen. It's one of my favorites. Subscribe and hit that like button to support more thrilling content, and drop a comment and let me know which story sent shivers down your spine. Your engagement makes it all possible. Stay tuned for more hair-raising narratives, and until then, stay curious, stay scared.